We've been in conversation where we are like, we have to do PR for PR because people don't understand what PR is. Breaking it down to actually PR is not events, PR is not advertising, PR is not marketing, because people always confuse those. But then coming to a place where we are telling people this is PR, this is the power of PR for organizations, this is the power of PR for Africa.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Investing Like an Executive. My name is Andrew Barden, the CEO of the Kenyan Wall Street. We have a very exciting conversation today about the state of PR in Africa. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself for everyone watching?
Okay, my name is Mary Njoki. I'm the CEO and founder of Glasshouse PR Limited, which is a Pan-African agency that has been in existence for the last 12 years. Started out in Kenya, and then we started out in other parts of the continent. Yeah.
Okay, and earlier today you launched a report, correct me if I'm wrong, about the state of PR in Africa. What do we need to know from that report?
So first of all, we decided to launch a report because we discovered there was no data or insight out there about how the state of PR is in Africa.
There's very little. There's no ad week here in Africa.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. So that triggered us to, to be the ones who are going to spearhead these conversations of data-driven PR, insight PR, and that's how we started out. And we actually went out and interviewed 28 PR agencies in 15 countries, and then interviewed a few thought leaders and the general public, especially on the understanding of PR. So out of that, we have many key findings. One of the most one of the most interesting one, we found out that most people don't understand what PR is. Even companies, medium enterprises, they're always cutting budgets when it comes to PR. So people don't actually understand what PR is.
But about the state of PR in Africa, I guess getting down to the core question, what is PR?
And I think so today we've been in conversation where we are like, we have to do PR for PR because people don't understand what PR is. Breaking it down to actually PR is not events, PR is not advertising, PR is not marketing, because people always confuse those. But then coming to a place where we are telling people this is PR, this is the power of PR for organizations, this is the power of PR for Africa. Because as a continent, we've not leveraged the PR, which is storytelling about what our continent is all about. We are always, I was in a global event where we had communication experts and media experts, but they all have this misconception about PR. So the reason we were doing this report as well is to empower the PR practitioners in Africa and to trigger them to be at a place where they need to tell the proper African story, the proper story of the Africans, not necessarily the Africa, the continent, the Africans, the people, their resilience, their creativity, the amazing diversity that we have. That's the essence of the report, to make sure that we trigger the PR practitioners that way. Then to go back to your question on what is really what is PR? I like using this. What do you call it? I like using an example of two people having a conversation. So there's person A speaking to person B. So person A is telling person B, do you know I'm a very good writer? And then it's one-way communication. That's marketing. It's always one-way communication. Then we move to another conversation where person A is repeating so many times to person B, do you know I'm a good writer? Do you know I'm a good writer? Do you know I'm a good writer? That now becomes advertising.
Okay.
So PR is when a third party, person C, comes and says, do you know A is a good writer? And then they come and then B says, I now understand actually B, or rather B says, I now understand you are a good writer. So that understanding of brands and introducing the third party, this being the media, the influencers, or any other person who is a public who is endorsing this particular brand, makes it PR. It sounds complicated, but I can say it's positioning brands in people's minds. Yeah.
Has the PR industry gotten more complicated with the rise of digital media, the rise of influencers and such? You know, from my point of view, it seems 20 years ago to be pretty easy.
Yeah.
You got 5 media companies, that's who you talk to, you know, different things like that. But in regards to nowadays, there's a lot more people, a lot more voices out in the world. How has the PR industry changed when it comes to, you know, digital media, influencers and such?
For me, it's exciting because my background is in tech. So when I started the company 12 years ago, I always thought, how do we actually integrate PR with tech?
Okay.
And my mind was on digital. When I started out, I'd be like, digital communication is the next big thing. How do we actually start telling our stories on digital platforms? So many years later, I can see how it has evolved, has created more opportunities for us as PR practitioners to be able to tell more stories on more platforms, which create more value for the people we are representing, or now it can create value for Africa. So it can empower Africans as well to tell their own stories from wherever they are. So I wouldn't say it's complicated. I think it's exciting and creates more room and more opportunities for us to tell many other stories. Yeah.
Okay, it's one of those things of you got to keep up with innovation or else you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And now looking at Kenya, you know, there have been a few brands who have had a really tough time in recent history. And such. You know, I'm curious from your perspective, because often, at least for me, looking at PR, you know, that also includes managing narrative and making sure that the right message is getting out and that misinformation is also not clouding, you know, what people think of the company. You know, when companies are going through what you could call a PR crisis, how do you manage that?
So first of all, I'll start from going back to the misconception of PR. We've discovered even in our report that most companies, or rather small medium enterprises, to be specific, and a few corporates approach PR because of crisis. But we have to keep insisting that PR is about strategy. It's a long game. It's like a marathon.
It's almost like branding in a way.
It's branding, you know. So we come in at the beginning of the year and we create a whole strategy for you throughout the year, and we go through specific things and even come up with what we call a crisis communication plan. In case something happens, how do we respond? But since people come to us when they're going through a crisis, we also have to arise to a place where we are able to respond and help them at that particular point. And what has worked in the last, or rather what I keep insisting to our clients, PR is not about propaganda or spinning. So I don't encourage people to spin or change a story. We come and encourage them to be more authentic and to tell the truth. Because once you spin today or tell a lie today, 10 years later, it's still going to come out and people are going to come after your brand. So like recently we had a crisis and we just told the client, just acknowledge, say, actually this and this has happened, and we respect your views, but from our end, this is what was happening. We apologize, but we're looking forward to improve this and this. So coming out without hiding, coming out in transparency, and maybe that's why we are called Glasshouse. Transparency and clear communication, that works for you. Of course, people will throw stones at you for 2-3 months, but then they forget. They'll be like, oh, those people are not arrogant. Those people actually came out. And your brand, because you're thinking of the long game, you're thinking of your brand 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But if you lie now, that story will come out, 5 years. It will, and people will start coming after you. So
I guess the message to companies is that they need to be honest.
Yes,
you
be
know,
honest, yeah.
be transparent. I
Be
do think
transparent,
the
yeah.
consumer, you know, even for B2B companies, people respect that honesty.
Yeah, people respect honesty.
You know,
yeah.
even if there's, hey, there was an issue,
Yeah.
we're in the process of fixing it.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much value in that
Yeah.
as opposed to saying deny,
we
deny,
didn't
deny.
do this. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, on, I guess, the media industry as a whole, where do you see the media industry heading in the next 10 years, specifically here, not only in Kenya, but across the continent?
Yeah. There've been a lot of conversation around radio specifically. And the conversation is radio might survive longer than most. But looking at the internet penetration, that currently we have around, or rather more than 384 million Africans online. That means conversation are moving more online than on the traditional media. And I can tell you the first places I see breaking news is online and not on TV. Probably I don't even watch TV. And if I watch TV, I'll watch it online. So media also needs to catch up. The traditional media, I've seen in countries like, you know, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, they're catching up quickly and they're now creating their own digital media platforms. But that's where we're going with the internet penetration, with mobile technology in Africa. That's where we are going. And I've seen them transition, but then it's going to be interesting because now because of that, everyone is also becoming their own media house. So I'm in my house somewhere in the village in Cameroon, and I decide to shoot a video, and you know, I become a sensation, and I become a whole media house. So it's quite interesting. It's a very interesting space, especially now with the introduction of AI. So we're just watching, but to be more to empower us to tell the stories. It's more empowering everyone to tell their stories where they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I recently listened to I think it was a BBC podcast special it was about Mali. It was about how TikTok is taking off in Mali because no one is paying for TV anymore. And so the news media is all transitioning to presentation on TikTok. And I actually found that super interesting. And I think, you know, that's definitely where we're headed as an industry, you know. And I agree with you. I think radio will actually outlast most of the traditional forms. Which is quite unique compared to, say, like the United States where I'm from, where radio is the first one to die. And then we still have newspapers, you know, and TV, but radio was very quick to go.
Interesting.
Awesome. So in terms of the state of PR, what's the one takeaway I need to move forward into my life today from your report, other than the fact that I don't understand PR?
I mean, there are different aspects of it, but then we noticed, or rather with the people we spoke to, 40% of the respondents said that they're not. They're actually taking advantage of AI tools to help them in their PR processes. So we found that quite interesting. Of course, not a big number, but then it's a very controversial conversation because I'm sure media people or reporters don't want to receive a press release that has been written using AI, yet it's happening. But then how do we integrate creativity, PR, and AI, media in developing content that is supposed to come from humans, that it's supposed to be from particular thoughts or from particular strategies. So it's quite an interesting process. So that was interesting to see that 40% of them are taking advantage of AI and digital tools. The other one was a challenge on talent acquisition across Africa. So people still are not finding the right people in their agencies to hire. So they have to either go to media houses or rival companies. Rival companies, people in advertising, just to bring them and train them anew on what PR is all about.
Interesting. Now you had mentioned something earlier. just now about all of these press releases. As a media company, can I tell you, we receive like 200 press releases a day.
Yeah.
How do I manage that? What's your advice to me as a media company when we are reading press releases? Because like I said, we receive way too many a day, and 90% of them are not what most media companies would label as newsworthy.
Yeah. You brought the word. So actually earlier today, I was encouraging the PR practitioners that we need to be at a place where we are bringing to the media that which is newsworthy, not just bringing a press release for the sake of the press release. So am I thinking about your audience? And then by the time I'm coming to you, I'm pitching to you as per the audience you're speaking to and per what is happening in the country or in the continent at that specific time, and that which is relevant for you. So I know in PR people have deadlines to meet, and that's why they're like, oh, we have to do 5 press releases for this client by this and this date. So they end up not thinking through the process.
It's
and
a KPIs issue.
It's a KPI
almost.
issue.
Yeah.
So moving from the KPI issue to actually being relevant and thinking through who is a media house I'm pitching to, speaking to. But then I'd advise you maybe automate your process so that it's easier for you to be able to see who you want to speak to when it comes to your press releases. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We've been looking at different automation processes because that's almost a full-time job reading press releases.
Yeah, every day.
Every day,
Wow.
even on Sundays.
Yeah.
And there's some brands who will do multiple a day. I don't have to say who. Wow. I think you have an idea who.
Yeah.
But I agree with you completely on aligning the KPIs.
Yeah.
And I think as a media entrepreneur, that would be my advice back to agencies would be, understand the audience of each media company a bit better.
Yeah.
Understand that, hey, this is not really going to work for this company, especially when it comes to very niche brands and such. Most of the time they just crowd out the noise.
Yeah.
Now I do have a special question for you. I ask this to all of my guests. And it's meant to throw you off a little bit.
Okay, I'm waiting to be thrown off.
When you were first starting your career, what did you spend your first paycheck on?
Bus fare.
Okay.
Yes.
Matatu.
Matatu, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any other questions for you. Do you have anything else that you think I need to know to move on and to improve my life and the life of our viewers?
I think for me, it's to keep encouraging us from Africa to leverage on, and I think I said it, but how can we leverage on the tools that are available, especially digital platforms, to tell our story? Because in 2025, I was in an event, there's still a person who think Africa is one country.
Yeah.
What are we doing? We need to tell our story better. Why are we allowing other people to tell our story? And why are we not leveraging on the digital platforms that we have to tell our own stories? So my encouragement will be, whether you are a business, an organization, governments, whatever we are, we need to be at a place where we actually tell the proper African story and the story of Africans, so that the misrepresentation that is out there no longer exists, and people can now see, we can now amplify the Africa voice on a global stage.
Absolutely. We can't allow CNN and everyone else to just write their opinion.
Yes.
Because that clouds even, say like my family back home.
Yeah.
When I moved here, I sent them a picture from my apartment, the beautiful view of Kileleshwa.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, there's tall buildings, there's all of this stuff.
Can you imagine? Right?
And that was so inspiring for me, which is, it's like, hey, what I grew up understanding Africa as and what it actually is very different things. I mean, we're across the street from the JW Marriott. It costs $600 a night. It's New York City level prices.
Right?
You know, there's so much more here. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.